Recognize my problems have been solved. Please, oh please, just let me recognize my problems have been solved. It's a pleasure to recognize my problems have been solved. Oh my goodness, I recognize my problems have been solved. How great to recognize my problems have been solved. It's wonderful to recognize my problems have been solved. My problems have been solved. Your problems have been solved. Our problems have been solved. Oh my God, oh my goodness, our problems have been solved. Problems have been solved. Problems have been solved. Oh God, goodness, our problems have been solved. Isn't that great? Goodness gracious, our problems have been solved. Problems have been solved. Problems have been solved. Your problems have been solved. My problems have been solved. Our problems have been solved. Our problems have been solved. Yesterday was, let me recognize the problem so that it can be solved. And what was the problem yesterday? That it told us the only problem is the problem of separation, actually. That's what it said. But then it said to doubt that we know what the problem is and let the problem, hey Carolina, hey. And then it said to let the problem, let us receive the answer to what the problem is without thinking we know what it is, even though it told us what it is. So, anyways, and it told us lots of cool things. Lesson 79 and 80 go well together. So, lesson 80, so yesterday was let me recognize this, let me recognize the problem so it can be solved, and now let me recognize my problems have been solved. All right, so let's remind ourselves the Course in Miracles doesn't ask us to believe these things. In fact, it tells us we'll probably have some active resistance to some of it, and that's okay. But if we listen in, if we hear, if we remember, if we remind ourselves, if we practice with it, it will bring us a positive result. I can say for sure, I feel like I'm starting to gain some of that thing, a positive result.
Um, and these kind of teachings start to stack on top of one another like a domino effect or something they seem to have. Okay, so let me recognize my problems have been solved. Let you recognize your problems have been solved. Let's recognize our problems have been solved. If you are willing to recognize your problems, you will recognize that you have no problems. If you are willing to recognize your problems, you will recognize you have no problems. Your one central problem has been answered, and you have no other. Therefore, you must be at peace. This is a big step for people to take. If they don't know the metaphysics, it's a big leap. Um, okay, but I'm going to keep reading. Salvation thus depends on recognizing this one problem and understanding that it has been solved. One problem, one solution. Salvation is accomplished. Freedom from conflict has been given you. Accept that fact, and you are ready to take your rightful place in God's plan for salvation. One problem, one solution. Salvation is accomplished. Freedom from conflict has been given you. Accept that fact. You are ready to take your rightful place in God's plan for salvation. God's plan for salvation, which is a now thing. Hold on one second, brothers and sisters. Um, so I haven't gave these little like basic maps, but I feel like they're good reminders. They're reminders I remind myself of, and especially if someone's new, they're good to know. The most basic map, the real only territory is the truth is true. That's all there is. There's nothing other than it, and the truth is always true, and it doesn't change to something else. Anything other than the truth is quote unquote not true. Or and then if the truth changes to something, if the hypothetically, if the truth could change to something other than the truth, then it would be something other than the truth, which is what? That's something that's quote unquote not true, right? So that's the most sort of basic map or actual territory of reality. There's only only reality. There's not unreality. There's no lies that are true. Okay, and then the next thing is it goes against that most basic premise, and it's the creation myth or the origin story for the world of appearances, or it's the world of story started, how the Big Bang banged, and that is the you could call it the tiny matter idea, and it goes like this: the where in the course, in the text of the course it says this is, I don't know, maybe like a quarter way in or something like that. says, hey, you really dig what this is saying, you know? It's like saying it poetically, like nothing real can be threatened, nothing unreal exists, and herein lies the peace of God. And that sounds cool. That sounds cool, doesn't it? Yeah, it does. But threatened, nothing can be threatened. But what about everything in this world, you know? There's some wood furniture there that's, you know, supposedly going to rot. I think it probably will. You know, there's a car out there. It's probably going to die, you know? Um, it's probably going to not work like in, 50 years or something, I guess. And, we've had friends die, we've had family die, right? So everything here seems threatenable. So the mind, it's natural for it to ask, even though it seems true, nothing real could be threatened, nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God. To the mind, to the heart, that sounds good, sounds true. It's nice to meditate on, but it's natural for the mind to wonder. But then how the freak did this world seem to start? And the Course says there isn't really an answer to that because it didn't actually really start. It's just a world of appearances. It's Maya. In the Buddhist term, the world of Maya, world of illusions. But it says this is a helpful origin story of how the Big Bang banged, how it started to start. Carolina wrote that there. Yeah, it's funny, hey? Oh, so anyways, here's how it went. It goes like this. Into the mind of God, where all was one and always will be one, there crept a tiny mad idea at which it forgot to laugh, or at which it remembered not to laugh. It kept teaching itself not to laugh, or it kept teaching itself to take the tiny mad idea seriously, which is what? It's the idea that there could be something other than the truth. It's the idea that what would it be like if things were like how they're not supposed to be? What would it be like if I did something in a way that's how it's not supposed to be? Like I did something, quote unquote, against what is, and the mind basically thought like, what would it be like? And we're like, whoa, shit. And it saw like wars and pandemonium and poor communication and children born with bodies that are ready to be hurt or neglected or traumatized, and innocence ready to not be, raised right, parents that, creators that don't create well or something like that. Governments that don't care, and religions that are not that seem to not be very, they betray. They yeah, kind of like what happened in the story of Jesus, right? All the governments betrayed him, the religions betrayed him, his family, his friends, spat upon him, then judged him and said, defend your innocence. And that is when he refused to, actually. That's kind of think the power of that parable, when he was at that point asked to defend his he was asked to defend his innocence after being betrayed by many, and he said, this isn't my kingdom. This is like an expression of unreality, I think is what that kind of says powerfully, is a good reminder. Yeah, Carolina says it kept teaching itself stranger and stranger ideas. Yeah. Like it stacked it on top of one another. In some way, it was all automatic as well, sort of. But, oh, yeah, so anyways, back to the time idea. The mind took it seriously, so it therefore identified with having done such a thing. It thought it was a shit disturber. It thinks there is nothing other than its rascally, character. And so when the truth comes in and says, bro, the world of images is just imaginary. In reality, everything's okay. There's nothing wrong. There's only truth and reality. The truth is true. Don't worry, bro. You're there with it, It felt like the truth was trying to attack it, so it created the world to be a place where where the truth would, quote unquote, enter not, where God could not be. It could hide itself from that and keep its small, fragile, angry, fearful identity that feels guilty for having ruined reality on some level. Okay, anyways, so its problem is there is no problem. That's its problem. So it creates all these fake problems on top of it. The ego's main problem really is there's no problem. So it has all these other problems that it puts on top of the fact that it's no problem. Because if it recognized there's no problem, it wouldn't exist, kind of. And it thinks that there would be nothing else. It feels like annihilation to it. And it kind of is to it, sort of. So anyways, second paragraph. Your only problem has been solved. Repeat this over and over to yourself today with gratitude and conviction. You have recognized your only problem, opening the way to the Holy Spirit to give you God's answer. God's answer, Holy Spirit. In recognizing this, our only problem, this is our only problem, we open the way to the Holy Spirit to give us God's answer. We have laid deception aside and seen the light of truth. We have accepted salvation for ourselves by bringing the problem to the answer. The problem is there is no problem. The answer is there is no problem. They are one. That's funny. Carolina writes, I have a hard time having no problem. That's funny. That's really funny. Okay. Anyways, you have laid deception aside and seen the light of truth. You have laid deception aside and seen the light of truth. Deception is there's a myriad of problems, but the light of truth is your only problem is there is no problem. You have accepted salvation for yourself by bringing the problem to your answer. And you can recognize the answer because the problem has been identified. It's man, this is a cool lesson, I think. Okay, you're entitled to peace today. A problem that has been resolved cannot trouble you. Only be certain you do not forget that all problems are the same. They're representative of the same idea of separation, that there could be something other than the truth. But there's only like wholeness. There's only holy wholeness. And there isn't separation. Where would it separate to? To somewhere unreal would be the only place. Okay. Their many forms will not deceive you while you remember this, the many forms of these problems. One problem, one solution. Accept the peace this simple statement brings. In our longer practice periods today, which should be 10 to 15 minutes, twice, we will claim the peace that must be ours when the problem and the answer have been brought together. The problem must be gone because God's answer cannot fail. Having recognized one, you have recognized the other. The solution is inherent in the problem. You are answered and have accepted the answer. You are saved. Salvation is now and here. Hey, there's this feeling it always wants to. There is this temptation to want to project it out or something like that, but it's here and now and no. That's the way it has to be, and it's a decision to feel connected, to choose to know you're connected to your source, to where you're from. You don't need to go outside yourself and do these things. If you feel inspired to, some lessons ago, there was a lesson where we asked, where would you have me go? What would you have me do? What would you have me say? And to who? And that could, in my meditation on that one, it was cool because it told me it would have me go within, deeper within to the light in my mind, and it would have me say, I love you to everyone. And it was this cool, amazing meditation. And there was some things to do for this character to, go there and say that or something like that. I don't even remember what those specifics were though at the moment. So anyways, paragraph number 5. Now let the peace that your acceptance brings be given you. Now, let the peace that your acceptance brings be given you. Close your eyes and receive your reward. Close your eyes and receive your reward. We're supposed to do this for twice today, 10 to 15 minutes. I did once. I haven't done my second yet. I'm going to close my eyes and receive my reward of acceptance of this. I'm going to let the peace that my acceptance brings be given me. I'm going to recognize that my problems have been solved. Recognize that you are out of conflict and you're free and at peace. Above all, remember that you have one problem and that the one problem has one solution. It's not many things here, not in the way that is meaningful for us in our heart, in our mind, in our emotions or something like that, maybe even. It is in this that the simplicity of salvation lies now. It is because of this that it is guaranteed to work now. Now. Paragraph number 6. Assure yourself often today that your problems have been solved. Repeat the idea with deep conviction as frequently as possible, and be particularly sure to be happy to apply the idea today to any specific problem that may arise. Say quickly, let me recognize this problem has been solved. Let me recognize if there's a specific this problem that arises. Let me recognize that this problem has been solved. And there may be, again, some inspiration to act in some way on the outside. In fact, there should be, I think there is, whether we kind of, I think that can become more clear. But the main thing is to choose to not fear or to not be anxious, and to say that even when it seems this character perhaps, I don't know, whatever, maybe doesn't know what to do about a relationship or about money or what to do exactly with its body or what to say exactly to its boss or its friend or something like that, that what I am is the thing that I recognize is, like here, the witness self connected to myself without needing the world to do something different. Let miracles replace all grievances, or there is no will but God's. My conflicting thoughts about blank cannot be real. Let me recognize my problems have been solved. Somewhere in here it says this conflict. I recognized when I read it earlier that there's this domino effect of these thoughts that we're training our mind to think with are like the thoughts we think with God or something like that, and we think with God, towards our source, towards the kingdom within, and that is the conflict place. So, being that there is no will but God's, or no will but truths, there's no truth but truth. There's no, so that the other, whatever other than that isn't in conflict with truth. Actually, we recognize that it is solved. Okay, anyways, last paragraph. Let us be determined. Does that make sense? I'm sure it does. I know it does. Sometimes the explanations can be like parsed out and delineated and stuff, but it does make sense, actually. I promise. Okay, so let us be determined not to collect grievances today. Let us be determined to be free of problems that do not exist. All the little problems are on top of the real problem, which is there is no problem. There's nothing other than the truth. It's wholly whole. Okay, the means is simple honesty. Do not deceive yourself about what the problem is, and you must recognize it has been solved. That's a really nice lesson, hey? All right, everyone, all together now. Let me recognize my problems have been solved. Let you recognize your problems have been solved. Ooh. All right. If you want to hear the exact, more distinct practice suggestions, you can check out Circle of Atonement. You can put that in your search bar. Circle of Atonement, the number 80. And tomorrow you would put 81 and so on. We're going to start a review period. We're going to start a review period for the next, I think, 10 days or something like that. The problem has been solved, but then what? That's some future looking, it's salvation is now. We have to be all right with that. There is a feeling to want to project it out, but what then? Like, what do I do about my bank account or something? And that's okay. We work with those, but then what thoughts? And we maybe can remember to expect miracles. Expect miracles. And we can remember what that means. Meaningfully, what that means. It's something like the most holy place on earth is where an ancient hatred or ancient grievance or sad thing turns into a present peace. And then we let that present peace go through our smile, have its effect. It's powerful being happy this way. So, in eternal miracles to you and to everyone. Enjoy. Pow, ciao. Goodness gracious.